Hey everybody, it's Thursday, which means it's time for another Volition stream. This time, hey Mitch, got you back on.
Hey, it's been a while.
Yeah, like 4 weeks, 5 weeks, something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
Anyways, hi, I'm Josh Stinson, I'm the video editor here, and...
I'm Mitch Cronin, I'm a producer, and this is Casper, he's a dog.
I really hope Casper manages to be on like every stream that you guest on.
I was trying to get him to do a little platform so we could have that Casper dog, even though he's a bit more of a cat.
Now that it's going to be like a recurring thing, I am going to have to make a name for a little graphic for him. But also in the control room, we got Mike.
Hey guys, Mike Watson here. I'll be running the stream in the background. One quick news item today is that Saints Row 3 for Switch is on sale for 30% off on the eShop for North America. We just got word of it, so if you've been waiting on it, now might be the time. I'm going to turn you back over to Josh.
Thanks, Mike. But yeah, this is going to be another dev chat stream. I've done a couple of these with a couple different people from different disciplines here. And I figured you would be a good one to talk to, especially because you have like a history here. You've been here for how long?
13 years.
13.
Wow. Actually, in a few months, I'm actually pushing 14 since I got hired in September of 2005.
Okay.
I started as a temp QA tester on Saints Row 1.
Oh man, I thought you started on 2 for some reason.
No, I started on 1. I worked on every single Saints Row game.
Oh man.
I've seen, including,
Man, that's because I was just trying to think, like, we did a promo picture for the stream today that's on our Twitter account. That's you holding up, like, the really old Saints Row 2 40.
That disgusting 40 that's got, like,
and I was
chunks
just,
the size of
while you were, like, holding that, when I was taking the picture, I was just like, were you here before that was here?
I was here before that was there.
Man.
I think that came about around at release, so that would have been...
Okay.
Yeah, that would have happened after I got hired.
Before we get into anything else, like, the Saints Row 2 40s, were there several of those in the studio? Did anybody drink any of those?
Oh, man. I
Or
feel like at least one person did, and I can't remember. That's a long time ago. But I think most of them we just kept for posterity.
Okay. Because it's like...
I think we might have opened one and, like, had people share it.
Okay.
But...
Just because, like, it's every time... Because it's, like... In the front lobby of our studio, when you come in, it's just like we have several shelves that are just like have awards for previous games. There's a bunch of other random like memorabilia that was made for our games, and yeah, one of the Saints Row 240s is still there, and it's fucking old and it's gross if you look at it. It's just,
you shake it up. There's enough sediment on there where it's like chunks the size of the tip of your thumb floating around.
Oh,
it's like
man,
it's like
so
fish.
gross.
It looks like fish food in there. It's terrible.
Oh man. Okay, so you started here as temp QA. How'd you get in here?
Well, my arc here is probably quite a bit different than how you do it in the modern era. So I'd graduated college. I had the always useful degree in philosophy, which I make fun of, but like I did, it was actually kind of useful because it's like it's the upper level course is like how to think well. It's like, okay, anyone can, most people can run, but someone like Usain Bolt probably runs a lot different than the rest of us because he practices it. Like, everyone can think, but there are methods to thinking well and how to do it. So, like, I actually did get a little value, even though it was, like, as a degree, there's not a lot of people look like, oh, yeah, that's a thing.
Yeah.
Except a lot of the courses are prep for law school. So my plan was, okay, I was going to graduate college, just find a job for a little while, and I was going to basically study for the LSAT, take the LSAT, and go into law school, and because I've always loved video games, but at the time my mind was if you wanted to be into games, the only way to get in was like, you got to know how to write code, you got to be some kind of artist. Like I had that kind of blanket assumption that everyone who made games knew how to code, and I took a little bit of looking at programming, and it was just, oh god, I couldn't do it. Also, it's apricot.
Oh yeah, the running crow in the chat asking what flavor LaCroix is that.
There's a forum posted today about the ranking of LaCroix, but I'll get to that later.
Okay.
Anyway, back to that. So I was studying for the LSAT and applying to odd jobs, and I was looking for I was on Monster.com back then because LinkedIn wasn't a thing, and I also was looking in the newspaper to kind of also date it, and I saw an ad for Volition QA, and it was like, all right, video games. That's a good temporary job. I could do that for a little bit, see what's about. Because my ultimate idea for law was like, maybe I could somehow be like a lawyer for a video game company because that doesn't make programming. Yeah. So I'm taking it. So I apply, and then I was like, all right, write the resume in here, and I worked on a MUD, multi-user dungeon, which is like text-based WoW.
Yeah.
If you can think of that. And I wrote areas and did a lot. Put that on my resume. And the QA lead at the time, a guy named Jason Votava, did that. So like he saw that line and was like, yeah, this dude knows what's up. So I got the job because I put my MUD experience on the resume.
Nice.
And I was working here, and I took the LSAT at the same time. Did rather well, got a 171.
Okay.
But as working, I realized, like, oh, you don't need to be a programmer to work in video games. I started learning about all these different disciplines that didn't need to do it. Like design, actually, you need to have a technical background, but you don't need to write code.
Right.
And then production was just, like, you don't need to know how to write code. It's kind of this jack of all trades. You get your fingers in a lot of pots. So, as I started seeing different paths in the industry, I was like, you know what? I think I might shift my focus and see if I can find a way to stay around. And, luckily, I started work on Saints Row 1, started in September of 2005. We're working on a XO5 demo, which is a thing Microsoft did at the time, because Saints Row 1, I believe, is still only available on the Xbox 360.
It's also backwards compatible with Xbox One, I believe.
Right, so it's gotten brought forward. So, it didn't come out on any other platforms. So we were going to be a launch title for the 360.
Yeah.
We were not.
Yeah.
But it got delayed to the point where I worked here for about a year, and they're like, oh, if you've been here for a year, we'll convert you to full-time. So went from temp, made full-time, I got full benefits and everything. So, like, you know what? All right, I'm going to give this a shot. Full-time, I've got benefits. Let's try to make a career out of this, because I was like, I love video games. I had a buddy at the time who was going through law school and was telling me what that's about.
Man.
I was like, you know what I don't want is a big giant pile of new student loans and going to school again.
Yeah.
So,
That's a big deterrent these days.
Yeah, so I dodged that, and that's how I got in. And then within QA, I started... So one of the things in QA where it seems like, you just sit around and play video games all day. It's like, okay, it's a really cool job, but what I would do in a game is not what normal players would do. So when I first started, I was an interface tester. So all I did in Saints Row 1, I spent thousands of hours in every interface that Now, some people do spend a lot of time in the customization interfaces.
Yeah, totally.
But there's other interfaces like the pause menu they probably don't spend that much time in. I spent tons of time on that. And I also was a certification standards tester, so that was... I can only talk so much about that, but basically Sony and Microsoft have the big list of rules the game must follow before they
Is that like TCRs or something like that?
Yeah,
they're called?
Not anymore, but yeah.
Okay, not anymore.
Yeah, but it's just like you follow these rules and you have to adhere to those rules, and basically the overall reason for that is like they want to make sure someone's game doesn't make their system look bad.
Yeah.
So in terms of like how their branding is represented or how the hardware is treated and how their features are supported, it's like, hey, if you use this Xbox supported feature, it makes everything crash. Like, that's frowned upon.
Yeah,
so
totally.
I looked at that stuff, so it was the stuff I was doing. So in that case, back in there, you had memory cards was like, the little message that pops up like, don't pull out your memory card. Well, I was doing that to make sure it repassed compliance. So I'm doing things that no player in their right mind would ever do. And I'd write a bug, and some developer would come to my desk and was like, you did what? I was like, this rule says I have to do that. And they're like, what player's going to do this? Who's going to go through this load screen and yank the memory card with this giant message saying not to do that? It's like,
oh, man.
So, yeah. So I did a lot of them, but through doing that, you get experience working with Microsoft. And then on Saints Row 2, we supported PlayStation 3 that time. And at the time also games, then Saints Row 3, later on, there was also games for Windows Live, which was a fun period of history that's gone now, thankfully.
It is.
But we started expanding, and Sony has their list of rules. So and then I rose up from just being a regular tester to being I was put in charge of compliance for the entire QA group.
Okay.
So there was a brief period in Volition QA where under THQ Classic, we grew to basically be a satellite facility for THQ. So in addition to just having Volition games here, we had a lot of THQ games here. Like we're testing, Destroy All Humans, Path to Furon, MotoGP.
Yeah, sometimes I forget about that just because, like, when I started working here again, like, I was going through just seeing, like, is all the really old games and stuff that I had in a box still here? And it's just like I was pulling out old builds for, like, games that, like, were definitely not ours. Like,
we had, we tested a lot of that other stuff. So as the compliance, I had testers on each project that were doing the standards testing. I was like in charge of all of that for our QA group here across all of our projects. So both the internal Volition projects, so at the time that was Saints Row 2 and Red Faction Guerrilla, as well as the external ones. So that was Dawn of War 2, Path to Furon, MotoGP, Juice 2 Hot Import Nights, which had a rare distinction of being one of the very few games so cross-platform play is the big thing right now.
Yep.
Way back early era 360, you could cross there was 2 games that officially supported it, where you could play 360 PC, and it was Shadowrun and Uno.
Oh my god! Oh yeah!
And Juice 2, Hot Import Nights, briefly supported it, and it worked, but ultimately they chose not to do it. But through doing that, I spent a lot of time developing contacts with Microsoft and Sony, and started doing more stuff that was kind of along the lines of release management, which in many other studios is a job that's on the purview of production. So I started developing skills there, learning about working directly with first-party groups and finding out, like, okay, here's how things work on their systems. Like, when we're, like, building the game, we have usually a site over on those platforms where we upload all our information. We upload, builds of the game. We have all of our metadata there, all of our achievement data, our trophy data, and it has to be done in a very specific way. We have to adhere to their guidelines, and when we provide them builds, they have to have very specific information, these other test logs and things like that. So I'd work with them to make sure we were doing stuff correctly, as well as making sure our project was set there. So I started doing that, and as I moved forward in QA, I was doing more and more of that, and less like testing the game, and more, managing the team, making sure their rules are up to date, making sure our test plans, like, and the other thing is, like, when you fail, you get this report, and there's a bit of, like, ebb and flow to, like, what they're focusing on at any given time. So you're never going to be perfectly clean, especially when a game has any sort of multiplayer. Like, in Saints Row, we have co-op, which is just going to make everything a mess. So we're always going to, it's more of a, all right, do we think they're going to find this one? Like, and if they do, what is the risk that they're going to fail us for it? So another big part of my job was, like, risk assessing when we would find these issues. Like, is this going to get us kicked? And it's like, if they find it, yes, but the chance of finding is low, so we'll roll the dice. And then we'll talk to the programmers or developers, and they'll say, this is really scary to fix. I would rather not fix this because this could introduce a host of other worse problems. So it'd be best if we don't. And if they do catch it, we can try to be like, hey, we don't want to fix this because it would cause these other problems. So a lot of, like, another big part of my job there was basically when we have wave requests, work with Microsoft and Sony, explaining to them, like, hey, here is the effect on the players if we do this. Here's the kind of our business case for this. Here's why this would be actually worse for players if we were to do it this way. And just kind of making that point. In many of the cases, like, yep, no, that makes sense. In other cases, like, no, we really can't let you do this. We need some kind of fix. And then in those cases, they would use, like, hey, if you'd like your developers, and we can have some get on the phone with your guys and work this out just live, so we can maybe see why you can't do it this way. So there's a lot of that. And then I did that across through, like, when we had the THQ facility and the remaining Volition projects, and then I was made producer in the middle of Agents of Mayhem. And my immediate duties then, my new duties from there was kind of taking some of the stuff I had done as the first party stuff. I had been doing a lot of release management stuff, so a lot of the same work I had done just kind of carried over.
I'll read this. Swaggy D in the chat asking, are you responsible for any Easter eggs in 1 or 2, like Secret Stash?
I am not responsible for any Easter eggs. The only thing I think I can not quite claim is there is a sign. I think it might be underground Saints Row 2. I'm not sure, because I was friends with one of the artists, and it's a Mitch and Eads' Flowery Garden. And then also, I believe in Saints Row 2, every developer gets a gravestone. So I think I died in the 70s.
Okay.
So,
it's a good decade.
I lived hard. But no, I was not responsible for any of the Easter eggs, unfortunately.
Okay.
But anyway, just if at any point you want to have any questions or things I should dwell on. But
I mean, you talked about that in the middle of Agents of Mayhem. You went from associate producer to just producer, right?
No, I went from QA to associate producer, and that was I was doing so at the end of Saints Row 4, I did like a lot of the actual submissions of the game. So the tricky part there was earlier in Saints Row, we're under THQ Classic, and a lot of the things when you submit a game, it's a collaboration between the studio and the publisher, because a lot of the interaction is directly with the publisher. Like, they will be the ones kind of setting up, here are the regions we're going to sell in, here's our price points, and they will take care of a lot of that stuff normally. There's a lot of stuff they do. They would have a test group on their side. THQ Classic had a submissions group. They're quite good. I worked with them quite a lot. And between us, our team here, and their team, we would get the game submitted. So we had this expectation of, like, okay, our publisher is going to take care of this stuff. They're the ones who actually pull together the build. They're going to make sure they have all the proper materials together, that's organized correctly, everything's put in the right spot. They're the ones who are actually going to transfer it to them. Back in the day, for a while, Sony required a physical disc. And before my time, I think one of the Punisher people, they were actually late, so they flew someone out to Sony UK on a red eye to get him a disc.
Oh, jeez. I remember seeing pictures. I wish I knew if we still had these somewhere. Because I didn't even remember it until you just brought it up. But I remember that there were like old photos for like around SR2 or something where there's just like huge banks of CD burners.
Oh yeah, yeah. We had those for CDs. And we have a Blu-ray one because a lot of the standards are you have to test certain. Like I mentioned, pull memory cards. One of the other ones is like eject the disc in the middle of play because this is back when everything wasn't just on a hard drive.
Yeah. We got a question from Feared Symmetry in the chat asking, what was the most fun, frustrating, or otherwise memorable glitch in all of that playtesting? Anything that turned into a feature?
Oh man, I guarantee you some turned into. There's plenty of times we see a bug and we're like, yeah, no, this needs to stay in the game somehow. I think one of my favorite, one of the first, because it's one of the first ones I found that I was kind of proud of was in Saints Row 1 in the car mechanic. If when you left the interface, if you were hold down the reverse, you would leave in reverse, but it would remove the speed cap of your vehicle, so you could accelerate to infinite speed and eventually completely shatter the streaming system.
Was that only in reverse, or could you accelerate too?
It had to be in reverse. Accelerate and operate properly, and it would cap the speed based on the car you're in. But if you did in reverse, you had infinite speed no matter what car if you left it in reverse.
That's like. There's another game that has that exact same glitch.
It was Big Rigs.
Yeah, it's Big Rigs.
There is a box above our QA manager's desk. There is a honorary box copy of Big Rigs sitting over his desk because that's like, I believe when you first start that game, you drive for it and there's a bridge with no collision. You just go through the bridge.
But also there's like no actual physics, so you just like adhere to every surface of everything. I love Big Rigs.
Oh yeah, it's such a as a tester we have that one up there. It's like, okay, don't be this game.
Yeah.
Some I'd say frustrating ones would be they'd be frustrating because they're high risk. So you know, in Saints Row you can get your characters naked.
Yep.
But we always have a privacy bar making sure you can't see stuff. But in some early versions of the game, there's always some very convoluted steps you could do to remove that.
Okay.
And like that's really bad. Like we are ESRB this rating, you know, which means this you can't see this. Like, okay, we don't have nudity in the game. We have things to hide that. So if you find a way to remove those remove those things.
Yeah.
And kind of funny. So around Saints Row 1 is when the San Andreas hot coffee thing hit. Which is basically here is content that wasn't in the game but is quarantined off.
Yeah.
So it was like. So we had to go through our code and basically make sure it's like, okay, we need to remove like nipple textures from there to make sure even if someone was to dig into files and find that content that it still wasn't there. So we had to be super, super careful around then.
Yeah. Svid Twitch in the chat asking, can a dev get punished for certain Easter eggs, or is it fine to put any in?
Yeah, there was one that was. I don't think this is an Easter egg so much as a mistake. Yeah, but you don't want to put any copywritten stuff. So like the one there, like the Punisher images, there is a good example. Like this is like if we don't have the rights to do something. So, you know, if you have any sort of copywritten stuff in there or stuff that we might own the rights to, like that's a super, super bad thing to leave in the games. And someone finds it, it's like, hey, this isn't there.
Yeah.
And.
Oh, yeah. So specifically, when you mentioned the Punisher thing, there were Punisher images in Kinsey's hideout that had to be like patched out, I guess.
Yeah. So when you went to Kinsey's thing, I forgot which one this. I think it was either Saints 3. I think this was Saints 4. But because she had that little hideout area when you'd walk in, she had a whole bunch of like a lot of nerd related paraphernalia, and one of the things that was in there was the Punisher logo and. Which, I mean, it makes sense in there, but also, Volition, we made the Punisher game. So it was like, hey, kind of a fun nod to our history. But the Punisher logo is a trademark of Marvel. And, like, unless we went to Marvel, like, hey, could we use our logo in our game? In which case, they'd probably say yes for the tidy sum of blah dollars. And so, a dev can't just insert something like that or, like, a fun image like that in some there. In other cases, there are,
I mean, like, at this point, I don't know if it was like this back then, but I know now, like, generally when Easter eggs happen, you have to like run it by people to get it like approved.
People, it's generally generally developers don't sneak if they have an idea. It's like, hey, this would be really fun if we did this. Like, I think it was Saints Row 3. We had like the weird Jim Boone, like, creepy room with, like, images of Jim Boone and some questionable things hanging around.
Yeah.
There's stuff like that, but it's like, people will bring it up. I'm like, hey, we want to do this silly thing, and usually everyone's like, okay, yeah, no, that'd be awesome, something for players to stumble upon, because...
Yeah.
And like for what as brought up right there, the main reason we want to vet that stuff is to make sure that like nothing that we put out there is going to get us in trouble. Because like,
yep.
you know, you might put something copywritten up there, or you might write a joke, and you might want to like, especially when you're doing comedy, you want to make sure you get other perspectives on what's funny, because you want to make sure you're not saying someone's like, well, I thought it was funny, or is it maybe this will fall flat, or this might offend someone or insult someone anyway, because you want to make sure you don't do stuff like that.
Yeah.
The best way to do is make sure you get as many perspective on something as possible. So when you're putting stuff in game, everyone needs to take a look at it so we can all weigh in. So there's nothing just like sneaks in like that. So Easter eggs are vetted.
Yeah.
For a number of good reasons.
Yeah.
But we all like them and think they're fun. So most of the time when someone has a good idea, it's like, oh yeah, keep that in there.
Yeah. So I don't remember if it was you who told me this. We actually showed it off in an old Break the Build of Saints Row 2, I believe. But I know that during QA testing, there were times when people would accidentally, clip through the ground, fall below the world, and they would land on top of the mini-map.
This was Saints Row 1, actually.
Oh, it was the Saints... Okay,
it was Saints Row 1, because the mini-map was actually... it was a texture with a camera above it, so it slightly moves. So you're moving through the world, and there's a texture, and there's a small camera kind of moving over this texture that's the mini-map.
Yeah.
And then early in development, if you fell through the world and you landed, it had collision for some reason. So you could land on the mini-map and stand on it.
God.
That was before, normally before we implement like a kill plane, where like you'd fall a certain level below, and it'd just kill you, so it'd restart, so you're not falling infinitely. But that wasn't implemented yet, and this tester managed to angle it just right to land on the mini-map texture.
I love that one. I'm sure mini-maps are handled differently now.
It's not. Yeah, now we have an actual system for them to actually do it right. But yeah, back then it was like, how do we do this? And like, because you're moving another texture on top of what's going on in the world, and having those two things coordinate, and we'd never really done anything like that before. Yeah, because it was our first open world game.
Right.
And
that's funny.
Yeah. No, there's. I wish I could remember more of like the silly tricks you do to kind of get things to happen. And like, you'll see something in a game like, oh, that's normal. Like, I think the one I can think of is like, I know in World of Warcraft there's like invisible chickens powering the world effectively. Like, there's all these like things moving around. It's just like, oh, we drop a chicken prefab, make it invisible, and attach this icon on it, and that's how we get these icons to move. There's like so many hacks where it's like, it's just quicker to do it this way, just to make it
I mentioned in a previous stream, but like in Fallout 3, all the like trains that move are actually invisible NPCs wearing train models for hats.
Yep.
So
yeah, I'm trying to remember some good. I remember some interesting things we cut, but yeah, I'm sure I'll get out of here. Remember, like, oh yeah, this was a really good one.
A thing I'm curious about, because like I talked to some other people who used to be in QA. Does a lot of the stuff you like, those games you tested, do they like stick in your memory? Like, is there a lot of stuff you can still remember from testing those? Because like I know for like Chris, who's been on before and stuff, it's just like he still remembers.
He's got an iron trap of a memory.
he remembers still how to like speed run Saints Row 2 in co-op.
He was also one of our he was user one of our faster testers. Like towards the end, we'd have. One thing's been so I've been like somebody recently watching like SGDQ and AGDQ watching speed runs and having testing it, because when you get towards the end, crit path runs kind of turn into like speed runs because you want to get them done as quickly as possible. Yeah. So it's kind of fun seeing that. But for me, there's certain things stick in my head and other things don't. Especially like Saints Row 1 and 2 are probably ones I spent the most time actually in game in. Yeah. And then later on, as when I got to my other position, I tended to be more of a running a team and organizing stuff, and also the nature of the work I did was pulling memory cards and yanking the network cords. Right. So it sticks with me a bit less. There's a few things. The one I kind of remember, I was going to say after watching speedruns, because I was thinking, like, man, if I was going to speedrun Saints, like, one of the things in Saints Row 4 that I think still is in the game is basically if, in the cave, if you just blitz as fast as you can, you can, and, like, literally don't, like, anything else, I think you can break scripting to the point where the mission doesn't continue, where initial explosions happen. But you literally have to just, like, ignore everything, run past everyone shooting you, and it might only be... I might be console only. I think on PC it doesn't work. I think it's like 360 if you just ignore all the combat. And at the time we're like, okay, no, like players probably aren't going to do this. Like this is something that's not going to happen. You've got to do that kind of thing. And now it's like, oh, here's this gaming subculture that's absolutely going to do that.
Yeah. Acme out in the chat asking, what's your favorite Easter eggs that aren't in Saints Row?
Oh man, that's a tough one. Mostly because the only one I can remember right now is an extraordinarily stupid one.
Oh yeah, what is it?
If you play Crusader, No Regret on Christmas, Christmas music plays. That's an extraordinarily old and obscure game.
Oh god. I'm going to say one that I really like. That's specifically in Metal Gear Solid 3. There's a boss fight that's like a 100-year-old man who's a sniper. And if you either right when you start the boss fight, save and quit the game and like don't play the game for a week, or like just
I think I heard about
advance
this one.
the PS2's clock a week ahead, when you load up the game again, he's just dead from old age.
That's awesome.
I love that one.
I remember hearing about like they did a lot of clever stuff in those games.
Metal Gear has a shitload of Easter eggs in it. But
I guess it's not really an Easter egg, but I did like how in Undertale, like they basically knew save scumming was a thing, and we're like, yeah, we're gonna have some stuff saved to the registry. So like, if you get the if you get the bad ending, you have to like hardcore extract the game from your system to go back.
There's some really obscure Easter eggs in Undertale, like. Real quick, you know how like in Undertale when it's like, oh, you can mercy an enemy, their name text turns from white to yellow?
Yeah.
In the very beginning area of that game, there's like frogs that you talk to, and they're just like teaching you how that works. And if you talk to one enough, he'll eventually turn the yellow text from yellow to pink for the rest of the game. And later in the game, you just find like a garbage dump, and all the yellow text names are just in a big fucking pile in the garbage dump.
That's great.
Yeah. Who takes the time to do that?
That's
I mean,
awesome.
It's an indie game, so
Yeah,
they can if they want. But
yeah, stuff like that, like little touches where if like I like games where they respond to like what the player does. Like that's why like the Deus Ex games and Dishonored are so fun because they respond to what I do in the game.
Yeah,
and it's like one like I think like gaming moments like that is like stuff like that is like that's why I love what I do because I get to make stuff where like I get to make the thing I'm passionate about.
Yeah, totally.
But I mean I can. Is there any time you want to go back talking production? You want to answer questions? Like, I've got plenty more of like the art story, or if there's like I don't know, you want to.
Let's go back to the production stuff.
Okay, so I was doing release management stuff in AM, which is some of the same kind of like working with first parties and Steam and ratings boards and things like that because every ratings board is different. There's like here's the list of things like they'd review the game. I believe Saints Row 2 when we were so. Europe is mostly ratings board called PEGI, except Germany has one called USK because they're a bit more strict, so we have to get a separate rating for Germany. And Saints Row 2 was so, I won't say bad, but had so much questionable content in it, we actually had to send some people to go to court in Germany to argue our case, like, hey, it should be like USK 17 and should be allowed to be sold on store shelves. And but so working with the ratings boards and kind of, because they're all slightly different. In terms of like what they, and it's like, here in the United States, it's like you want to stay at an M-rated game. You don't want to go to an AL-rated game because if you're an AL-rated game, you don't get to be on the store shelves along M-rated games like you get it someplace else. And it's kind of a similar thing. Like people expect, like, oh, Europe and Japan are probably more, liberal and relaxed. They're probably not as big of a deal. Europe and PEGI is very kind of on par with the ESRB. They're relatively similar. But on Sero, which is Japanese rating, they're actually quite a bit more strict. But their max rating, their equivalent of AO, is not like the death knell that it is here. It's like it's not going to be sold.
Isn't it like Z or something?
Yeah, Sero Z is kind of like that, but it's not like those games will actually sell there. So it's like it's like. Hey, this tier is down here, but when you get this tier, it's not the like kiss of death for a game. Yeah. But we still try to aim for the other one so it gets sold alongside other stuff like that. So it's just, I don't know, it's interesting because when you work with ratings boards, you start kind of learning more about different, like how gaming culture is perceived in other areas of the world. Especially now, like there's emerging markets, like Brazil has been a huge market right now. So paying a lot more attention to like the Brazilian ratings board, which I'm blanking on right at the moment. But and thinking about like emerging markets and like, okay, what is the culture of those areas, and like, you know, what does that mean for our games? And usually in some cases it's we have to adjust our game for a SKU.
Yeah.
So like with, you know, like the German versions of the game, we will say, okay, when you kill someone, normally you can like if they're a ragdoll and you can mess around with their corpse and knock it around. And like Germany, we turn that off so like the dead bodies will fade, or you know, dead bodies can't catch fire. And another common one is when you kill a ped, you know, sometimes they'll drop some cash, and some of those other games like Peds can't drop that, or it has to drop when you shoot them, not when they die. So there's a lot of things like a lot of those things where like they take a lot of things like you can't be rewarded for killing someone innocent, and that's a very, very strict thing for USK. So when we go to those, like in a Red Faction Guerrilla, for example, on the German version of that game, like if you kill, you know, you kill an innocent colonist, and you know your alert rating slowly starts to climb. If you kill an innocent in Red Faction Guerrilla in the German version, it maxes out instantaneously. You instantly max notoriety. You instantly have everyone on it. So if you kill an innocent in that game, it's like you are hunted.
Yeah, that just seems like an interesting thing to have to work around too, because like with stuff like that, it's not even just like aesthetic differences. It's like changing the gameplay.
Yeah, some of those are trickier than others, and you know, in some cases it's like we got to remove this one thing or one small feature. Or in some cases, it's like we got to like swap a texture out for something else. So it's like, okay, the dildo bat has to look like this instead of that.
Yeah.
In other cases, like so in the Australian version of Saints Row 4, so the Fun Shandy personal mission, and it's all about doing drugs, because Fun Shandy likes indulging in some recreational chemicals. And the Australian rating boards, I believe it's the OFLC, I can't remember, they take drug use quite seriously. At the time, it took drug use quite seriously there, so we had to remove that mission from the game. And the tricky part there was that mission is also part of an achievement. So we have to go and make sure it's like, okay, can you still unlock the achievement on this version when we remove that one mission? Does that, it changed all the stats. So there's a bunch of other small things we need to think about to tweak this. Like all we're doing is like removing one mission, but there's a bunch of other things that kind of relies on that mission being there that we got to go back and make sure we didn't like, oh, is this achievement unable to be won now?
Yeah. There's so you talked about, you know, like, oh, there's a emerging market in like Brazil. I don't know if you've seen some of the rating stuff that's started happening with like some games that are actually like in China right now, because like PUBG is really big in China, like, but they had new. Like they take violence very seriously there, it seems, especially with their new rating stuff.
Sorry, just trying to adjust my dog.
Yeah. But in PUBG, just recently, like in the past month or so, they made it so that, one, there's like no blood splatters or anything when you shoot people now, but also they can't show death. So when you kill somebody now, you don't kill them. Instead, the player you shoot stops, they get on their knees, put a loot box on the ground as a gift, and wave goodbye, and then they just disappear. It's great.
That's hilarious.
It's so weird. But yeah, it's interesting seeing like how every region has like some pretty minor like differences like that.
One of the other quick ones, RFG, we localized that to Arabic. And the tricky thing there, everything was left justified, so like the amount of like we had to do so much crazy UI work to like basically make it so all the text would be read from like right to left.
Yeah. We also got Swaggy D in the chat asking, while working on any of the Saints games, did you guys ever look into face scanning like NBA 2K and FIFA and stuff did?
I feel like in Saints Row 4 we talked about it. I think because we were looking into having companion apps, but I think we ultimately decided. I think we decided against it. I'm trying to remember the reasons why. I think we took a very brief look and we're like, I think based on how we were doing customization, it would have been a lot of work to get, like, we didn't have the time basically to get like the camera tech that basically could like map your face was like something we didn't have any of at all. And it's like, we had a very, very good face customization where you could morph a lot of things on your face, but the other part of the tech, which was like mapping the face, we had not touched any of that, and we hadn't really been on a lot of the companion app stuff. So I think a lot of places do it. A lot of that is kind of pushed by publishers, so they kind of push that stuff, and we didn't really have the backing. But like we didn't really have that like rich background of like publisher backing, like because the examples given there, it's like, okay, FIFA and The Sims are both EA. They can leverage the same piece of tech across games.
That's true.
NBA 2K, they have the WWE series. Like, they can leverage that tech across multiple games. We didn't really have that. It was like we would have been this expensive thing that would have just been used by R1 games. So our publishers probably be like, we're not going to fund this. We're not going to blow out the companion app that hard to do that. And we're looking at our resource being like, this is, it's impressive technology that...
Yeah, I'm not even, because I haven't played any of those games, at least from that generation, so I'm not really super aware of how good they looked back then. I'm sure the tech for doing that type of stuff is a lot more advanced now, especially with like much better cameras and smartphones and stuff.
Oh yeah, like you can you can do like emojis that look like you and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, back then not quite. But yeah, I do remember seeing reviews, and usually they'd be like, it does a good enough job. As long as, it's like, okay, that looks a little like me, I guess. But yeah, so there's a lot of release kind of management stuff for Rings. I guess kind of zooming out for production. Like production is a lot of people ask you, say, I'm a video game producer, and like, oh, what's that? What does that mean? Because if you say you're an artist or a programmer, people have like a more clear idea of what it is. And I think the kind of boilerplate explanation, like the best way I can describe it is, when you're working on games, you kind of have your three main pillars of people that are like building the stuff. So it's like you have artists, and I include like audio in there too. So like the people that are making the assets that sort of provide the audio-visual experience. You have the designers who are placing coming up with how you interact with stuff, and both that includes like story and writing as well as like gameplay systems. And then you have programmers, and they basically make all of that work, give all of the rest of the people the features they need to build the things they do. There's a whole bunch of work that is in between the cracks there that needs to happen, and if production does all the between the cracks work is kind of the way I describe it. It's like if I'm doing my job well, designers, programmers, and artists are coming in here and they're spending most of their day making art, working on their design, and writing code. They are not worrying about licensing for software or worrying about getting information from ratings boards or worrying about first-party stuff or wondering what they should work on first. Yeah. Because the other thing is, things have an order. If I'm a mission designer, I was like, okay, I'm going to, I'm working on mission 1 and I need to place some enemies. Well, if those enemies haven't been built yet, I can't place those enemies. So it's making sure it's like, okay, I'm going to go work on something that we've got the building blocks for this stuff, so then I can then go and do it. Right. So it's just kind of thinking about that. So again, it's also thinking about like what's the order of operations, what's getting worked on in the correct orders, or all the dependencies in line. Mm-hmm. When a designer comes in, it's like, oh, here are the tasks I need to do. Because people kind of look, it's like, oh, tasks and scheduling, that's bland, that's not creative. But at the same time, it's like, you need to kind of have that stuff, otherwise, I'm getting ready to make Mission 3, and the building blocks that I need to make Mission 3 aren't available yet. I'm going to be sitting there spinning my wheels.
It's just like all the necessary work it's all the work to make other people be able to do their work.
Yeah, there's that, and then as the game moves along, because, early on, Orange just has, like, good ideas after good ideas, and it's like, oh, man, you get in a room, it's like, what if we did this, and if we did this, and then, there was lasers and lightning, and then, a black hole came, and it was great. And it's like, okay. And then another part of producers. So producers, I think Jim Boone is like, we champion the player experience, which I think, and that means basically whenever we're taking a look at stuff, we're always thinking about stuff in terms of a player. So one thing that's important for producers, because the production group includes producers and project managers. Project managers, the stuff has to talk about tasks and allocations and stuff like that. That's a little bit more on that side of the fence. Producers, we look a little bit more at the game itself and kind of think about like, okay, we prioritize the features and also think about when if something's done. So like, I'm an artist and I want my stuff to look as good as it can possibly get. Yeah. As a player, there's a certain point where if you make it look better as a player, I'm not going to notice these tweaks because, for an example, in a Saints Row game, you're driving along a street real fast. You're not going to notice like small little details on the buildings all the time. Mm-hmm. Or I think of a game like Spider-Man. Yeah. If you pay close attention to that game, there's not that much variety in the vehicles in the game. Yeah. Like there's only I'd probably say 9-ish, 10 different models, and if you're standing there taking a look at it, they don't look that good. Mm-hmm. But they don't need to look that good because most of the time you're in that game, you're web slinging.
Yeah, you're like 60 feet above the cars.
You're looking up there, and it's dense traffic because it's not going to frustrate you. Or if you're on the ground, you're in a fight. Yeah, you're not spending a lot of time taking a look at that stuff. So as a producer, my job is to decide to help out. Okay, we should put focus on pushing this to look really good, and then at this point, it's what, this is good enough because what our players will be doing, extra work here they're not going to notice. We should go focus our efforts here. Yeah. So kind of thinking, it's what is the kind of experience in the game we're making? What are the things we're building that helps helps that experience, and those are the things we need to, like, as a producer, like, making the decisions, like, yep, we should try this because this is going to be like, or this is going to be great for like what the experience went for this game. Whereas this is like, we should include this, but we don't need to push it that far. We should do it this here. We should prioritize this here.
Yeah.
And if this doesn't get done, we're okay with this not getting done. Versus if this doesn't get done, we're really hosed. So it's a lot of like figuring out working with the creative director team to figure out, okay, what do we need to add, to what extent. Is this good? What is the player experience going to be of all this tied together? Like, and helping kind of guide those guidelines. So that's a big part of our job, and then as well as a lot of just like working with every single external person you can think of. You know, we have producers who are focused a lot on outsource management. You know, we've got a partner. You know, we've got a lot of outsourced places, you know, that we work with, and it's like, you know, working with teams that are across, you know, sometimes some are in Russia, some are in Mexico, and just making sure they have what they need to build the stuff they need, and they understand what the metrics are, what the quality bars, what we're looking for. So, you know, we'll provide them with all the information they need to build it, you know, and, you know, create pipelines where we can give them regular feedback. So if they're working on it, we're able to say, yep, we like the direction this is going, or, you know, like this. I know you're making this one pink or this one red, but now that we've taken a look at it, we think this look better in yellow or something like that, or change the shade here, or like just a feed like and a producer would be the person that like builds up that feedback loop and creates that process to make sure it's like, hey, there are people half a world away working on assets for us, and that we're able to, you know, give good feedback to each other and make sure it's going to fit in the game.
And this is something I feel that like even for people who you know, are kind of interested in game dev and might know some things that just a normal person might not. I feel like the whole outsourcing thing is another like layer of production that a lot of people aren't aware of.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I wasn't even like super aware of it until until I started working here, and when I was like playing like Uncharted 3 or 4, I think, because there was just some interview where somebody was talking about like, yeah, like there's a lot of like prop variety in the Uncharted games. Like every location has a ton of unique stuff in it, and it's like, yeah, we had an outsourcer that just made props for us, and they made something like 10,000 assets for us.
Yeah, it's just
like
the amount of people you need just to build, like, you know, when you're working on like a game like an Uncharted or a big open world game, you just need so many things to get that variety. You need to build so many things. Like, a lot of times people like outsourcing people is like, oh, it's this dirty word. It's like, you know, it means that we're exporting. It's like, no, we still have a lot of internal artists here making stuff here.
Yeah.
And part doesn't mean we're doing that. And it just allows us to like leverage even more, especially as like, you know, as hardware goes up, quality expectations for each individual asset goes up. Like, and you go back and look at a PS1, PS2, or a 3D game, and it's like, yeah, that's some low poly stuff.
Yeah.
It takes a lot, like the more the poly count goes up, the longer it takes to make an asset. So you need to leverage better tech as well as, or just a larger workforce. And we kind of do a bit of both, because we do have the luxury here of, you know, we don't work on Unreal. We're working our own tools here. So like if an artist is like, I'd save a lot of time if I could do this. You know, they walk across the hall. The person who made the tool sitting across the hall. It's not like they have to go like, well, I got to go to the Unreal support and submit my ticket and hope in a couple of weeks that they add this feature. I need this feature and this will be super important. The person that made the tool is like across the hallway to get it done.
Like I've personally done that with like the video capture tools.
That's right.
And like I still need to go back. There's still more stuff I would like in there. So at some point I'll have to see if I get some more stuff in there.
You work with Joe and he's like, yep, that's all done.
Yeah, it was like even knowing that's like, oh, it's our tools, and that makes it way easier to get this stuff done quicker. I was still shocked. It's like, oh, it was like 3 days, and like 75% of the things I had asked for like were already in the engine, just like working, and that rules. Spid Twitch in the chat asking, how many devs truly finished the games they worked on the hardest difficulties, or is it like trophies, like 0.5% played?
I got a pretty hilarious story about this, actually. In Saints Row 2, there was an activity called Heli Assault. And we had a tester, a guy we called Soup, because his last name was Campbell. We're super clever.
All right.
And he posted a bug. Is like, I can't beat this. Like, this is unbeatable. This is way too difficult.
Yeah.
You know, he got to like level 6 or 7 of it and couldn't do it, and posted the bug. And then the developer basically was like, haha, get good. And he's like, you come here and beat it in front of me, and I will close this bug out. Yeah. Developer walked up, could not beat it. And I would, to more directly answer the question, my gut would be it is kind of low. There are, I say, the people that do beat it on the hardest difficulty level are the people that do the difficulty balancing at the so the people you'd want to do that are the ones that do actually go through it like that. So, you know, our systems design team, the people who are coming up with the different levels and are going to be like, okay, this is what hard means in terms of combat. They're the ones that are going to go through and beat it that way. Like, a random mission designer, they might not do that because the systems designers are the ones who are basically going to decide, like, all right, what does it mean when we go from normal to hard? Is it just everyone has more hit points? Does it mean more enemies spawn?
Yeah.
Does it mean that they use special abilities more often? Is it just their health goes? It's like they're the ones that determine what that is, so they're also going to be the ones that are going to spend the most time going through each of those difficulties and making sure they do it. And the other thing we leverage a lot there is usability playtesting.
Yeah, I was about to ask, like, for playtests and stuff, do people actually play in different difficulties?
Yeah, when we do focus tests to basically kind of hit those marks, and when we bring in usability testers, in some cases we'll look for like, hey, for this usability test, we want people who are like, veterans at these kinds of games. In other cases, like we want people who maybe don't game very often. So like we try to get a variety of people in terms of variety of perspectives, both in terms of experience playing games and just a very diverse selection of people to get and play the game, and then try that at different difficulty levels to kind of get as much data as we can. It's like, how is this feeling? Because the person developing those difficulty levels, spending fine tuning it, they spend a lot of time in the game, so they have a very narrow perspective. So we really leverage, like, this is something we really try to leverage usability. And our usability research, we have an internal team, we share that with Deep Silver, so we have a couple other locations in the UK and in Munich. So when we run tests, in some cases like that, we'll run tests in multiple labs. So we can get perspectives from, like, okay, we got some folks from the UK lab, we got some folks from the Munich lab, we got some folks in our lab. So we can leverage multiple locations, and each lab has a little bit of different setup and gear, so we can kind of take that into account. But we try to get as much outside information. We'll do internal play tests to get data on it, to be like, all right, how does this feel? But in terms of beating the full game on that difficulty, I'd say it's probably on the low.
Probably pretty low. All right.
I'll even fully admit, like, I never beat the original Saints Row. I basically got to like the second to last mission, and then like, we found a critical bug, had to restart.
Oh, geez.
I did beat Saints Row 2 and 3, and Red Faction Armageddon. I also got same thing in Guerrilla. I did beat Guerrilla, but there's a lot of games where it's like I think there would be a higher rate of devs not being in the game than you would think, because of this, like, when you work on a very large game, you're working in very specific areas. Yeah. And especially in the hardest difficulty level. Yeah. But like for me personally, I don't play games to be challenged. So that's not something I do. But that's why I really like that. Like a new thing is like when they call it, instead of calling it easy, they call it like story mode. Yeah, I like that too. Totally. So it doesn't make you feel like, oh, I'm weak for playing this one. It's like, no, it's more like I want a different experience than another player. I kind of like that that's trending towards like saying, not making you feel like you're an inferior player because you want a different experience.
Yeah, it's not like the original Wolfenstein where it would like call you a fucking baby and shit.
Baby mode, and like the characters go like sucking and stuff.
Gotta pacify.
Yeah, part of me that kind of laughs at that too. I still kind of like it, but I do. Yeah,
Like it's funny, but I totally understand why some developers wouldn't want to do that.
Especially like a game where it's like a story is a big component. Where it's just like, hey, this is a bullet hell game. Where like the full purpose of this game is you play for the challenge. Like, I can kind of get it there.
Yeah, that was like. I've played a shitload of Agents of Mayhem, but I can't say, despite basically playing every single thing in that game, I can't say I've like beaten it because I've never gone from start to end in one playthrough. Yeah. Because I played so many random chunks of it at random points when it was in development that it's like I played the game in just like a weird random order. Yeah. And it's like I still got the gist of the game. I played everything. I actually got pretty used to it on like the really high difficulties too.
We had you doing so many videos in that game. Like you were in that game a lot.
Yeah,
but
I played that game a lot.
Same thing in QA. Like towards the end, everyone's running crit pass. So at that point, it's like everyone's just like going for beginning, and that's when you figure out like who the fast people are. And we would have like internal competitions. Like we always knew like, all right, George Signor, like he's playing Saints Row 4, and he figured out like he was basically kind of doing what a speedrunner, routing the game. Now, when you're doing it in QA, you can't utilize glitches to get by stuff because it's like, all right, this is a bug, we got to post it. Ideally, this will either be fixed or we can't. It's like if you do a bug after a bug, like that's a thing. So like, I guess like to use speedrunning nomenclature, we would be doing glitchless any percent runs.
Okay, sure.
And he found out it's like, all right, Saints Row 4, you have superpowers, you got your super speed and all that stuff, but the single fastest way to move in the game was the Attrazione car. Like, that had the highest velocity of anything, faster than any aircraft, faster than super speed. Yeah. And in a lot of the missions on that game was like, there's one big major artery, so if you get that car early, and you could just get that car in the major artery, we can drive in the middle of the road and not run into anyone, you will you'll finish the game quicker leveraging that car than any of the superpower, so you don't need to spend as much time orb hunting because you need to use the Attrazioni to get around quicker than leveraging these other things we had. So it's like people will figure out silly stuff like that and like, all right, so let's crit run faster. Or then like the co-op crit ones, like that's the stuff that Chris Dubois would do is like, all right, you basically, you're not really playing the game together. One person's doing the thing and the other person's just basically like getting in place for the next mission trigger. So when the mission ends,
so they can just warp
the other player is right by the mission trigger so they can start the mission right away.
Yeah, I still have to see that in action someday. It sounds cool.
Yeah, those guys are doing a lot of that. I'm trying to think. So yeah, production, mix of stuff. It's a very jack of all trades job.
Yeah.
Like it's one of the things I like about it is coming into work on any given day. I don't. Like, here's a list of stuff I would have in my day-to-day. Like, I will go and I'll prioritize bugs. You know, I'll go take a look at tasks, make sure they're getting done. You know, I'll run reviews. So, like, we'll look at review one particular feature. Like, okay, today we're going to look at this thing in combat. Or, you know, if it was like Saints Row 4, like, today we're going to look at this superpower. Or, you know, agents will look at one particular thing and, you know, get people in a room and gather a bunch of feedback and generate tasks out of that. So, like, I'll run reviews and kind of do that stuff. But outside of that, it's just like, on any given day, there's any number of things that could pop up. It's like, oh, you know what, we got to have some phone calls with some of our middleware companies to make sure, you know, this, or, you know, there's, you know, we some new information about hardware's coming out. We should go have some conversations to, you know, see what this means. You know, an issue happens on a prior game, we should start investigating. Like, there's like any number of things can pop up. Mike's laughing at that one. Or like, you know, there's like maybe there's like a local festival, and like because I ran I set up the E3 booth for the first time we went to AOM. They sent me out there for that, and I would I helped set up the booth, built all the PCs, and like get out there. We've been testing the game on a GeForce 980. It's like, all right, we're working. We've got to build the game. We know it works in the 980. Fly out there, and I get to convention site early enough. Like I don't even have a wristband. It's like I had to get this special thing to get in there. It was they're still like literally like with saws out there building up the stuff. And I'm building the PC, and I get to where, okay, here's the PCs, and they was like, oh, you know, we gave you 1080s. Like the 1080 wasn't out yet. I'm like,
oh, geez,
we've never tested this on the 1080s. So I'm a little worried. So I built like, okay, I'm going to build one PC first, get it up and start up, fire up the game, crashes at launch.
Oh,
so I'm like, all right, this is full panic mode. Like we are like in 2 days, we're going to be going live. Press looking at the game. I'm far away. There's no internet there. It's like I have this. It's like, all right, let's start triage thing. It's like, all right, I looked at the crash like it's a rendering thing. I call someone in queue. It's like, hey, talk to this rendering person. Have them take a look at this. I sent a screenshot of the error. We had someone there who was like, all right, let's try a driver update. Maybe like that's always a good one to try. Like let's try reinstalling. Let's try doing like everything we can possibly do. And like the rendering guy's taking it. And thankfully it was just a driver. We got updated drivers.
Thank God.
And it was able to work. And they're like, all right, so show's going on. Everything's going fine. All of a sudden it's like, so how it wasn't like the main show floor. It was like in the upper floor. So it was like private.
Yeah.
So how it would work is people would come into the Deep Silver booth and they'd check in and they'd be there to like look at a couple other titles that we were doing. And you had this kind of main area to mingle and some smaller rooms where you could do interviews, but there's a lot of press just kind of talking with like PR and marketing people. And they were like, man, it's getting really cold in here. Can you guys turn on the AC?
Yeah.
Now, the agent's room was like, you'd open a door and there's a bank of like, there's like 16 computers in there. It's a relatively small space. So all of a sudden we're sitting here, it's like, it's getting really warm in here.
Oh, no.
And it was also getting warm enough to where the game was crashing more because the PCs, which were kind of putting these like things there, were starting to overheat.
Oh, man.
So I was like, we got to get the AC back on. This is starting to make the game crash a lot more. I was like, oh, the PRP was like, well, they can get a jacket.
Yeah.
It's just like there's so like another cool, like another thing I like about it, like when you're doing like running an event, there's live television. Like when you're doing that kind of stuff, the single dumbest thing that happened there. So there were 8 of us there, and like we go through the first couple of rounds of people checking out the games. Like, all right, we got the rhythm here. You know what? We don't need all 8 of us here. We can do it in groups of 4, so the other 4 people can like grab a bite to eat, take a break, go explore the show.
Yeah.
So it's my turn to go take a break. So I'm wandering around. So I brought the laptop and had, that was a laptop they'd used to bring the PowerPoint and run through the presentation and stuff. So I'm wandering around the show like, oh man, I'm at E3. It's like my fucking dream. I remember walking like the E3 editions of EGM. Is so pumped.
Is that the first E3 you ever went to?
That's the first E3 I ever went to.
Man.
It was like living my kid's dream. It was like I sat there. It was one of those surreal. I was like, a lot of people kind of like hate on E3. It's all corporate. It was like as a kid of the '90s when the E3 like reading the E3 edition meant so much.
Like when you're like 12 or 14 years old, that shit looks fucking magic.
It was like actually being there, and not just being there as like going there, being there, actually being a part of something, doing it was like it felt so fucking awesome. So I'm wandering the show floor, and I get a phone call. It's like, so on our machines at work, if they stay idle too long, it automatically locks it.
Yep.
that happened with that laptop, so it was locked under my login.
Oh,
I was
God.
not the one running the presentation. I guess Carl's like, it just locked. We're gonna have a presentation in 2 minutes. We can't unlock it to get to the PowerPoint.
Oh, God.
So I'm like halfway through. So I am in a dead fucking sprint, sprinting through like hardcore dead sprint, running through like all like trying to like weaving in between lines and ducking people and stuff like that to get to move as fast as I can so I can unlock the computer so we can get access to the PowerPoint. Because and as soon as you did, I call IT. Is like, is there any way we could turn this off? Because I don't want to have to like basically be there to babysit the computer so it doesn't automatically log, or have someone to make sure they're wiggling the mouse constantly.
God, yeah, that PC lock thing has gotten me a couple times too.
No, I was
on these streams.
Dog's excited, but yeah, no, I was dead sprint through there. I was panicking. I was like, oh God. But part of that's fun is just like live TV. You never know what's going to go wrong.
Oh,
and part of it, again, as a producer, it is. Those are the things it's like a skill you have. Like, okay, you got to be able to be good at, all right. It's kind of like, okay, here's a problem. You don't have time to sit and think about it, really. You don't have time to get them together. You're like, all right, problem. We need a quick solution. You kind of throw a dart.
Yep.
And if you're good, the dart's kind of close to the solution. You got to be really quick. It's like, okay, that didn't work. I got to throw another one. I got to throw another one. I got to throw another one. And the skill is like basically a wide cross-section of potential problems and being able to quickly be like, okay, here's a solution. You need to do this. You need to do this. You need to do this. Let's see how this goes.
Yep.
Or like, we got to try 3 solutions at once. This one's good. This one's looking promising. Still work on this one just in case. We probably don't need you to do this. So it's just like balancing that and very quickly kind of making calls. And it's like you're working in chaos.
Yeah.
And trying to triage to a point where you can find a solution instead of like in game development. Sometimes like when you have a lot more time to work with stuff. So it's like, okay, we found a problem. This isn't working right. Instead, you can bring a group of people together and go take a look at that problem. And it's like it's a different style of problem solving that's also valuable for a producer. Where it's like, okay, we have time to have a discussion and really start gathering some data and investigate possible solutions. Or it's like, this just isn't fun, or this is, and figuring out why and things like that.
Yeah.
So it's a jack of all trades position.
What one question I've been meaning to ask you, because it's like when I left the studio for a bit, you were an associate producer. When I came back, you were just a producer now, right?
Yes.
Does it suck not be able to say that your position is Ass Pro?
Does if you look in the credits of AOM, me and Jason Strong are ass prods.
Yeah.
And they're very briefly, we have since changed our title structure. We had associate producer, we had senior associate.
Okay.
So I was a senior ass prod.
Oh.
But to kind of turn more industry standards, that turned into just regular producer, because that's how it is at most other places. So I'm just a regular prod now. There's
Was there any big changes in what you did going from that to your current position?
I'd say the changes were less about the promotion and more about just because like on AOM I was a release producer, so I was working a lot, like I mentioned, a lot with the first party stuff.
Yeah.
I worked very closely with QA. Like I went from posting the bugs to being the person that kind of decided what got fixed. Mm-hmm. So, and one thing, when people look at games and they say, oh man, this is a really buggy game, like QA didn't do a good job, it's like, no, I bet you QA actually found that. It's either A, there was no time to fix it, or some asshole producer like me decides, like, nah, we shouldn't fix that. So, like, if you see a bug in a game, like, the reasons why it's there, it's a long list of potential reasons that go far beyond than just, QA didn't do their job. It's like, they probably did. There's a number of other, bad and good reasons why that bug still stay there. But anyway... Yeah. I went more from working on that side to working directly with like content teams on the game. So like, people are actually building stuff and working on. So that's where I say a lot more like working with people who are building features and reviewing those features, and making sure directors are in the loop at what's going in and having people take a look at it and working with feedback and kind of, and making sure, we have a roadmap lined out and when we're going to build what features and making sure the other teams know about what that is. So it's like, okay, this is going to come online in a couple of months. So we're not going to start working on this thing until this comes online because we need this kind of stuff. So working with that. Yeah. And also just sitting with the team, like having fun brainstorming sessions of like, hey, we need some fun ideas here, and kind of working the process of how you come up with like a bunch of great ideas into the few ideas you actually execute on. So like part was really fun because it's I'm a lot more involved in the creative of the game than I was previously. Like as a release producer, I didn't have a lot of creative impact. But now working with content teams, I'm actually more hands-on with people making creative decisions. I can have creative impact, which is pretty cool.
That's pretty cool.
So it's like the level hasn't changed a ton. It's more about the position they have put me on the project. So that's a nice change of pace. Right. And again, as production is a jack of all trades, it's just broadening what I'm able to do and what I know about.
All right, cool. I guess before we Actually, we just got another question. Spit Twitch again asking, how many consoles to PCs have you had to replace because of the overheating or because the game breaks it?
So the everyone is well aware of the red ring on the Xbox 360.
Oh yeah.
That one, I think probably we replaced quite a few 360 dev kits, and I want to say old era PS3 dev kits. Those they were massive, and in fact they got
I've seen one of those.
The back of it got hot enough where you'd legit burn your finger if you touched it.
Oh my god.
But we had on Saints Row 1, I think this is a little bit before I came along, but we had a guy named Mike Kozakowski who there was something in the game that caused it because he red ringed 3 kits in a row because he found a bug in the kit red ring. He's like, I gotta try that again. Red ringed another kit. He's about to do it again. And the lead's like, dude, no, just post it and don't repro it. Because like he fried like kit and fried another kit. Was getting ready to fry a 3rd kit. But that one, the newer stuff though, that's actually been quite solid. PCs. We haven't really fried any video cards outside of just like normal what you expect out of wear and tear for like having a machine for a long time, and and we got like the later generations of like the 360 PS3 and like the modern stuff. Like we haven't had what I'd call an unusual amount of hardware failures. They've actually all been pretty solid to work with.
Yeah, because especially like I've seen the current dev kits we have for current consoles, and they like compared to older stuff, they're a lot closer to either what they look like and or like actual size of normal consoles.
I think a big reason is we call it Gen 8, which is the Xbox One and PS4. Is like Gen 7, 360, PS3. They each try to be hardware monsters in their own way. Like 360 had a bunch of cores, the PS3 cell processor. They were trying to really push it, and Gen 8. They both kind of was like, we're going to make like a good mid-range gaming PC and turn that into a console. So they weren't trying to do anything crazy hardware side, which means that they don't have to do anything crazy for worrying about overheating and cooling, which made the hardware side a lot more stable. So we're like, there's a lot less units. We're not wrestling with that nearly as much because they weren't trying to like make these monster pieces of hardware.
Yeah, that makes sense. But like when we have people on for Dev Chat, like we usually ask them how they feel about like our current project we're working on. But I already asked you that last time you were on.
Guess I'm still pretty pumped about it.
You're still pretty pumped. Me too. Nothing's changed since then. I'm still pumped. But I will ask you, what have you been playing recently? Anything?
So I went back. I've been going back and playing the original Super Metroid.
Okay.
Which is
nothing wrong with that.
That was a fantastic game. I could talk for quite a while on that. And also on the is Metroidvania a useful term thing, I'm firmly on the vein of it is a good word.
Okay.
I know there's some debate like recently
I've seen
that
recently.
It's a bad term. It's like I say it and maybe some Alcor people don't know what it means, but most people have an idea of what game it means. I feel like language is a useful tool and like language.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I've been playing a lot of that, and then other older versions. I played Metroid Zero Mission, Super Metroid.
Those are all good.
And I finished Hollow Knight, and I wanted to play more like this. And Hollow Knight is a fantastic.
Hollow Knight is great, and I'm excited. They're making a sequel, right?
Yeah, he plays a Hornet.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm really pumped about that too.
Have you been interested in getting Bloodstained?
I have. Yeah, I want to get it on Switch, and I'd heard that Switch performance isn't. But so I got Dead Cells on Switch, and Dead Cells is fucking awesome. And I picked it up on Switch as well. When I first got it on Switch, the performance was kind of iffy, but they patched it in because like it's such a fast-paced game. You need to have that smooth frame rate to be able to pull off the tricks. Yeah. And then they patch it so it's like it's buttery smooth on Switch now. Yeah. So like I'll probably pick up Bloodstained, but I'm gonna wait for because for some reason, my Switch is my indie game machine. Breath of the Wild was a great game. The weapon breaking mechanic killed it for me. Nintendo, if you're listening, get rid of that shit that ruined the game. That is a masterpiece game that I love everything about that one thing ruined for me. Yeah. But otherwise, I use my Switch to play indie games. It's a handheld thing for indie games on a handheld is just.
The Switch feels like the indie game soul of the Vita moved over to that.
I've heard other people. I never had a Vita, but I knew a lot of other people that had said that about the Vita.
It had lots of really good indie game ports when it was still getting a lot of support.
I heard that about the Vita.
But yeah, the Switch is really great for that type of stuff.
I played so many indie games on. That's kind of like in between releases I'm interested in. I'm looking forward to Borderlands 3 and stuff like that. I'm pretty pumped about that because they're silly. I like Diablo with guns. Yeah. Totally. I also have been giving Path of Exile. Everyone's like Path of Exile is better than Diablo 3, and I'm finally giving it a serious try. And another hot take: no, it's not.
Yeah, I haven't actually played Diablo 3 either.
Diablo 3
I only
at
ever
launch,
played the first one.
At launch, it was rocky, but as they patch it in and remove the store and kind of zeroed into what they do, it's a like of the sort of like kill loot get better, kill loot get better kind of loop. I think it's a very like well done example of that.
Okay. The only game I've been playing, and it's just because it's a really big fucking long game, is Judgment, which is it is a spin-off of the Yakuza games.
I've heard about it. There's a buddy of mine that keeps trying to get me to like.
Yeah.
They're on my list, but there's always something that pops up ahead of it that I want to play. But there's a buddy of mine that keeps telling me I got to play those.
Yeah, Judgment is what if instead of a Japanese gangster, what if instead you were a detective that for no real reason knew how to punch really fucking good. I am over halfway through that game. The only explanation for why this detective knows how to fight really good is just, oh, I'm self-taught and my dad knew some karate.
My dad knew karate. I can't punch that hard.
Right? Like, God. It's a really great game, though, both just like story stuff and also it's really fucking fun. Also, let's switch over to Mike. Mike, what are you playing?
What are you playing, man?
After I unmute myself. Hey, everybody. I've been just beat Super Mario Odyssey. And when I say beat, that means I beat the last boss fight, and then there's like a ton of post-game content I still need to do.
So he's like 15% for the game.
Yeah.
15% completion, I guess.
I mean, to get to like the first ending of Mario Odyssey, you get like 250 moons maybe, and that game has over 800 moons.
So many moons.
Yeah.
It's absurd.
And then I'm about 15 hours into Breath of the Wild. And Mitch is right, that weapon breaking mechanic is terrible, and I hate it, but I love everything else about the game, so it's keeping me through.
There's so many things that are amazing about that game, and, like, I get this awesome, like, lightning spear. It's like, I never want to use it because I don't want to, I get cool stuff I want to experiment with, but I can't because they're gone so quickly.
Yeah. There's some things that happen, like, later on in that game that kind of, like, helps. Like, I mean, eventually you just get a weapon that never, like, truly breaks. It just has to recharge, like, 10 minutes, and you can get it upgraded so that it recharges even faster and takes longer before it breaks and shit like that, too. But, like, yeah, I do hope that for that sequel they announce that they, like... If they keep the weapon durability at all, that there's some way to, like, upgrade them so they never break, or you can repair them,
or it's just
some shit like
there's
that.
other games that have had durability mechanics that didn't. It's just like make it last way longer. Not like I literally get into 3 fights and it's gone.
Yeah,
it's like all right, at least let me like all right, this lasts like 2 hours or like a lot of fights. Like cool. I'm not. Don't make me feel bad about using my cool thing.
Yeah,
it's like remote bombs all the time for every piece of combat, just so I don't do weapon degradation.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, the bombs are pretty fucking useful in that game, though, so there's that at least.
They are pretty, like, and everything else about the game is so good.
Yeah.
Like, you walk up on something, and it looks like, I should be able to do something with this, and you try it, and it works. Like, that sort of just, like, the thing I love they do in that game is they don't handhold very much. They let you discover things. Like, a lot of modern games, because they don't want players to miss stuff, is like, they point, it's like, this is something that's here, which is playing Super Metroid, like an older game. They don't handhold. They don't tell you where to go.
Yeah.
So you discover things. And Breath of the Wild, I think, does that fantastically, where, like, you discover things, so you feel awesome. It's like, oh, I just figured this out, as opposed to, well, I followed the glowing arrow to my objective thing that was listed in 3 menus and had a giant arrow over it, so you don't feel that awesome that you found it.
Yeah.
Whereas Breath of the Wild, like, you are discovering new shit every 5 minutes.
Yeah, I played that entire game because, like, you can just turn off quest tracking, too, and if you do that, you do, like, every quest has, like actual like physical descriptions for like how to arrive at the place you're supposed to go to, which is like something like Morrowind did, I think, for all their quests. I think they also like gave you actual physical directions to get to places, and like I did that for the whole game, and it was rad.
I think they added something like that to Assassin's Creed Odyssey.
Yeah, they have two different.
I haven't tried it.
I played all of Odyssey like earlier this year, and yeah, they have 2 modes.
I'm impressed.
Yeah, it's a long. Like I started playing in January, and I finished it in like March or something. Like
yeah, I think I got to months. I got past Athens, where it was like the city with the doctors, like
yeah, totally,
whatever.
Yeah, there's like
Arcadia
there's like a guided mode and an exploration mode, and yeah, I played exploration for like the whole thing, because they put a shitload of work into their open world. So like,
I really had a lot of fun with the game. Also, I'd like to apologize. The dog just farted. So
I'm fine right now, so maybe we'll end the stream before I die from noxious fumes.
Time to
or
end the
something.
stream.
that's
Yeah, time to end the stream. I mean, yeah, the AC isn't even on, so it's not blowing in the mics. We're gonna have to like open the door and just like fumigate this place, something. Oh man. But yeah, thanks for watching. I guess we will end the stream now.
I mean, I guess we are over time anyway. So
Yeah. But yeah, thanks for watching, everybody. We stream every week on Thursdays, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific at twitch.tv/DSVolition if you're watching this on YouTube. And yeah, youtube.com/VolitionTube is where all of our other streams get archived the following week. If you want to see some of the older stuff we've done, including like break the builds and stuff, like, you know, every Saints Row game basically, or some of the canceled projects we've shown off in the previous few years. But yeah, thanks for watching. Again, I'm Josh Stinson, the V editor here, and today we had
Mitch Cronin
and Casper.
and Casper the dog. And we'll get a platform soon.
All right.
And Mr. Mike Watson.
Yeah, Mike.
Thanks for watching, everybody.
Yeah, but we'll see you next week. Later, everybody.
Yep.